Growing up, the dream was always to own some form of property. And over the years, I've not only seen millionaires acquire rental properties as a means of preserving wealth and generating cash flow, I've also been fortunate enough to buy, renovate, and build a few of these myself. But as I sit here in 2023 with enough money to invest again, I'm actually very trigger shy and no longer a fan of buy-to-lets.
Given exclusively to Sky News, show a rise of nearly 13% selling up in just 4 months since July. In October, 3/4 of landlords who left letting agents did so to sell their property.
And that's why, my friends, I am not looking to invest in buy-to-lets in 2023, as I don't believe it's the best investment vehicle right now. And that's why, friends, in today's video, I want to run through 8 reasons buy-to-lets aren't worth investing in right now. Number 1, interest rates. Let's start with the obvious one, my friends. We've had a fortunate period of low interest rates where every Tom, Dick and Harry has become a property expert and been able to leverage low rates to make somewhat healthy returns, at least when compared to the bank rates being offered or other investments. However, as rates are now creeping up, amateur investors and even experienced ones are beginning to feel their bottom lines take a hit. And I guess it wouldn't matter so much if some of the other points I'm about to mention in this video weren't at play too. But due to the cumulative negatives around the rental sector today, and buy-to-lets more specifically, interest rates really is the icing on the cake that nobody asked for. Number 2, scumbag tenants. Contrary to what the media will have you believe, bad tenants exist too. And although I've been fortunate with my tenants over the last 10 years, it only takes one to really cause major issues. The mental health and financial stresses of a bad tenant is something you have to consider and be mindful of. A tenant of mine, for example, has decided to no longer pay, and losing 8 months of rent and legal fees to just simply get possession of the property again means the profit I've made for the past 1 or 2 years has literally gone. And to make matters worse, the chances of recouping that from the courts is very minimal. So therefore, you need to know that if you end up with a bad tenant, just expect your stress levels to grow. There's nothing more frustrating than not being able to get your house back and having to cover payments, deposits, insurance, and everything else that comes with buying a buy-to-let for someone else who, let's face it, has not adhered to their contract and in my opinion is simply stealing from you. Number 3, house prices. Now, house prices are doing everything but crash at the minute. Yes, I'm one of those who believe they'll fall, but the longer they stay high, the more mortgage you'll likely need. And with a combination of high rates, it's not really the best option in my opinion right now. Plus, if you also look at the properties that were selling pre-pandemic into any deal analyzer, you'll quickly see how much worse the ROI is for those exact same deals today. Now, the opposing argument to this is they'll always rise in the long term. And although on the whole we can agree that's the case, I've yet to see a market not go through cycles. And that's why I always say nothing goes in a straight line forever, and there will be some corrections or maybe even a crash at some stage. But again, that's just my opinion. And you may ask, is it worth waiting for a better opportunity? Well, that, my friends, depends on where you believe we currently are in this market cycle. Number 4, EPC. Now, the EPC debate has been ongoing for some time now. With news about it scaring landlords to flee the market, it does raise some serious concerns if implemented. How will it be enforced? Will landlords get any support? What if tenants can't be present during renovations? Where would they go? And also, what if the landlord simply has no money to do the necessary upgrades? There's just so much to unpack here and so little clarified. But again, it just seems another extra cost and burden pushed onto landlords who seem to be everyone's favourite scapegoat. Number 5, limited companies versus personal. Now, as you're probably aware, investing has become more difficult due to Section 24. And as a result of tax changes, many investors now opt to buy via a limited company or an SPV, i.e. a special purpose vehicle. And it was reported a staggering 77% of all buy-to-let mortgage applications were made through limited companies in the first half of 2019. And since then, the numbers have continued to increase as people opted for buying property via a limited company while Section 24 was fully phased in. Now, personally owned properties, when it comes to tax, is fairly straightforward. You deduct your allowable expenses from your rental income to arrive at the profit, on which you then have to pay income tax at your normal rate. You can't, however, claim your mortgage interest as an expense on personally owned properties. Instead, you now receive a basic 20% reduction from your tax liability for any mortgage interest payments and other financing costs. This, of course, is bad news for higher and additional rate taxpayers, as it will mean you'll simply have to pay more tax, which then makes the idea of using a limited company much more appealing. But here's some things to note. Tax on properties owned via a limited company is quite different and slightly more flexible. Once again, you're able to deduct the allowable expenses from rental income to arrive at the company profits. However, the entire mortgage interest payment is tax allowable and will also reduce the profit, thus decreasing the amount of tax due. You then simply pay your corporation tax rather than income tax on the profits. Now, if you keep the profit inside the company, perhaps to save for another property, then there's no more tax to pay. And if you want to take profit out of your company, there's three main ways. That's salaries, dividends, and pension payments. And each one is taxed differently. Please speak to a tax advisor if you need more information on that. Number 6, better options. Now, I'm not telling everyone to simply invest in gold, stocks, FBA, or themselves. Be that cliche personal finance channel, because it's what everyone is doing right now.
Invest in yourself.
But I am seriously telling you to consider the alternatives. In a world where I believe better options now exist, it's definitely worth considering.
Listen to me. I'm going to tell you something.
Never be afraid, my friends, to change your views, and don't hold on to a view forever just because it made sense once upon a time. Now, of course, there's the BRRR strategies that still work, but you still face many of the cons that I've mentioned in this video and will go on to mention in a few moments. The only benefit, however, when comparing a buy, refurbish, refinance versus just a standard buy-to-let, which is pretty big and definitely worth weighing up against, is if you do it right, you're able to pull more money out and you can certainly increase your ROI. And as a result of that, you essentially decrease your risk once you finish the process. Number 7, you don't actually make as much money as people think. There's really not huge profits to be made in buy-to-lets, my friends. If you average 4 to 5% capital appreciation a year and manage to get rent for a year with little to no maintenance and your tenant paying, you can call it decent returns. Better than the banks, as I often say. But it's not a total money spinner, as some people mistakenly believe. Now, of course, in 25 to 30 years time, if you put money in a buy-to-let rather than a bank, you could definitely argue that you've probably done better. But the opportunity cost of not investing that, let's say £30,000 or £40,000, or even more in some cases, into a buy-to-let is that you could have possibly started a venture that brings in more income over the years. And here's a very quick example. We started Healthxcel with a passion to help with your mental and physical well-being without actually being present myself. So I scrapped my news and noteworthy top 10 mental health podcast and jumped into this venture. Now, the wife being a pharmacist and myself being passionate about mental health and having 10 years experience in personal training, put our heads together and it just seemed a no-brainer. Now, it was tough in the first year, I'm not going to lie to you. Starting your business is very tough, and even now we still have tough days. But we're already seeing the potential and in some months better returns than many of our buy-to-lets. And of course it's more work. And for many, investing in buy-to-lets, it may just be a sideline gig. So I appreciate context and circumstances is definitely important. But don't just jump on the bandwagon because it seems the thing to do. Most gurus are pretending it's the number one investment type to do right now because, let's be honest, they need to sell their shit to make money. Number 8, it's hands-on. Now, from a legal perspective, you are the one in charge and responsible, my friends. EICRs, gas safeties, having a safe home, etc. That's on you. So don't rely solely on a letting agent. And although you can alleviate some stresses from using good agents, just be mindful that the buck does start with you, my friends. Thanks for watching.